Board of Education, I call to order and welcome you to the 2021 annual meeting and budget hearing of the electors of the School District of Black River Falls. Thank you for coming. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Present policy is that you must wear a mask inside. I see some are choosing not to wear a mask, and they're available at the registration desk. And please be responsible adults and respect all citizens here. If you still will not wear a mask, please go way to the right. I am Board President Mary Jo Rozmanowski. I ask that you stand as I introduce the rest of the board. Brad Dobbs, Vice President. Ann Deemer, Treasurer. Tom Epps. Amy Hoffman. Troy Webb. And Clerk Mary Jo Radcliffe is unable to attend tonight. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Shelley Severson, our District Superintendent. Ms. Jill Collins, Director of Business Services. And Attorney Chad Wade as our parliamentarian. At this time, I ask that any former school board members present please stand to be recognized. Okay, please keep standing. I'd like you to introduce yourself, starting with Paul.
Paul O'Ham, Black River Falls.
Axel Bressler, Black River Falls.
Patty Dickinson, Black River Falls. Barb Sullivan, Black River.
Tom Cooper, Black River.
Thank you. And I really thank you for your time, service, and continued interest in public education. At this time, we'll do a reading of the notice, and I welcome Tom Epps to read the notice of tonight's meeting and hearing in Mary Jo Radcliffe's absence. Mr. Epps.
Notice is hereby given to the qualified electors of the Black River Falls School District that the annual meeting and budget hearing will be held at the Yolanda Theater on the 25th of October, 2021 at 6 p.m. Detailed copies of the budget are available for inspection in the district office at 301 North 4th Street, Black River Falls, Wisconsin, 54615, dated this 6th day of October, 2021.
Thank you. The board and district staff are committed to providing quality and high standards in education and are committed to working together with you, our community, to live up to our slogan of inspiring excellence. Your interest and involvement by attending tonight's meeting is appreciated. If you choose to speak tonight, we ask that you raise your hand and after being recognized by the chairperson, stand and state your name and address before addressing the group. You must be a resident of the School District of Black River Falls to vote tonight. A meeting of the electors under state statutes requires this chairperson be elected from the attendees. When making a motion or nomination, please state your name and residence for the record. At this time, I will ask for nominations for a chairperson to facilitate tonight's meeting. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Ron Ford.
Ron Cork has been nominated. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Brad Dobbs.
Brad Dobbs has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? I'll ask one more time. Any other nominations? Since there are two nominations, we'll start with a voice vote. All in favor of Ron Cork, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor of Brad Dobbs, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's pretty hard. Let's do a raise of hands. Okay, do we have, Marty, do we have people to act as tellers to count? Okay, all in favor of Ron Cork, raise your hand.
I'm gonna go to the back. Did you come up with, we're counting the same people? Yeah, I want to know what you come up with. Oh. Sorry. I think we have to have two counts. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Sorry, everybody raise your hand again. I'm sorry.
Okay, Ron Cork, raise your hand. Sorry, we'll try that again.
I have 35. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. 35.
Okay. All in favor of Brad Dobbs, raise their hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I counted up to 36 and then stopped because we only needed one more then. Okay. She had 72, I had stopped at 36.
Okay, Brad Dobbs is our chairperson.
Good evening. We'll move on to item number 4, the reading of the minutes, unless we want to dispense with the reading of the minutes. And do I need a second to dispense with that?
And Marty Mason, who made the motion? Yeah. Oh, Mayor Presley. Ford has the River Drive.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, we don't need a second. Okay.
I'll second that motion. Max Hart.
And for everyone's information, is page 7 in your packet. And we'll go ahead and take a vote on that. All in favor of dispensing with reading the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Next, we will read the financial reports. And again, that's on page 9. So there's a lot of good news in this letter, so I'm going to go ahead and read this. This letter is to provide you with an update as to the status of the audit of the school district of Black River Falls for the year ended June 30th, 2021. The field work relating to our audit of the district's financial statements was completed in August 2021. We are in the process of preparing the financial statements and our report thereon. The following summarizes key matters pertinent to our audit. We anticipate that an unmodified opinion on the June 30th, 2021 financial statements will be included in our report. This opinion states that the district's financial statements are fairly presented. We consider the school district of Black River Falls to be in sound financial position as evidenced by its fund balance and the fact that it is not dependent on short-term borrowing. General unassigned fund balance of approximately $5,058,000 is approximately 19.5% of the general fund expenditures. Figures included Fund 10 and 27. The district maintains its books and records in accordance with the Wisconsin DPI regulations. The district's accounting staff should be commended for their fine job in maintaining the accounting records. The district has complied with the Wisconsin's revenue cap regulations. As such, the district's tax levy for the 2020-2021 school year was within allowed limits. We expect the financial statements and our report will be issued by the DPI's December 15th due date. Please contact our office should there be any questions that arise. Next up, we will have Jill Collins, who is going to present on the proposed budget and budget hearing.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you all for coming tonight to hear about the budget. It's not usually something that gets a lot of attention, so I appreciate you all coming to hear some of the facts and figures and the great news we have to share as well. The goal of tonight's budget hearing is to give a broad overview of the funding mechanisms for the budget and how they affect the big pieces. I'm going to give you the 30,000-foot overview. We're not going to get too far in the weeds because we could be here all night if I did that. So first, let's go into a little bit of the background on how we first start developing the budget. School finance is complex. First, there's a thing called the revenue limit that we have to talk about and calculate. The revenue limit really is a spending cap for the district. It's the total of the tax levy for Fund 10 and also the state equalization aid. The information on the screen just talks about the different components of that. It's the state equalization aid.
You need to click through. Do you want me to click?
Oh, I'm sorry. That would be helpful. And of course, you can't see it very well either. Sorry about that. But it's comprised of the property taxes, the state aid, the high poverty aid that the district now receives, and personal property and computer aid. The biggest pieces of that are the general fund taxes, but even greater is the state equalization aid. What happens is they take the enrollment for the district from the third Friday. They have a multiplier that's called a per pupil revenue limit amount. And then that calculates our revenue limit for the most part. It's a 3-year rolling average of the enrollment, so that levels out the impacts of increases and decreases in enrollment. And then these peaks and valleys are further smoothed out by something called a declining enrollment exemption in the formula. So unfortunately, school finance is a little different in that our fiscal year begins July 1st. So we set the budget in June, and then we learn a whole bunch of more figures in September and October after the fiscal year's already started. We're required to follow some governmental accounting procedures, of course. Fund accounting, which is a little bit different than accounting that someone would do at their business. So our biggest fund that we use is for general operations, and a lot of the figures we'll talk about tonight are talking about that fund. So these are some of the factors that went into the calculation of the budget. There was no increase in the per pupil revenue limit amount. There was no increase in the low revenue ceiling for low spending districts, like what the school district of Black River Falls is. And there was no provision for counting students differently due to COVID-19 for revenue limit purposes, both for 2020 and 21, as those are 2 of the years that are included in the 3-year rolling average. 2/3 funding was attained by adding funds to the state equalization aid pot of money. But this is also not new money to the district. It acts as property tax relief instead. Another major factor that I said is student enrollment. There's a thing called the third Friday in September that you may have heard about. For us, this third Friday in September, we had a decline of over 50 FTEs in our school district. Now, this isn't counting open enrollment out or in, it's the resident students that enroll in a school district. We get to count those for the revenue limit. State aid is a different story for open enrollment. So where those students land, that's where our aid goes for those students as well, or comes into the district if we receive open enrollment ins. The decline in the student, or the resident students was absorbed this year by the declining enrollment exemption. That helped us out greatly. Otherwise, it could have been a very drastic cut to the budget that we would have had to deal with at the last minute. However, those lower student FTEs will affect the revenue limit over the long run, so that is something we'll have to keep in mind as we go forward in our future budgets. The other thing that helped us with the revenue limit calculation this year is our summer school count that we had. We had 36 total FTEs for summer school. We're able to capture 40% of those, or 14 for the revenue limit. A normal year for this is 20 FTEs, or about 8 students for the revenue limit. A few other factors I just wanted to share are talking about equalized property values in the school district. Equalized property values in the state increased 7% overall on the average. The school district of Black River Falls increased by 4.78%, bringing our total equalized value for property in our school district to just over $1 billion. That's the first time we've been at that mark ever. The problem with having more value and less students is that we look richer in the state equalization aid formula. So the state looks at us as being more able to pay for all of our expenses in the school district. Thankfully for this year, those numbers are from last year, so our equalized value and our students come from last year. We actually did receive a 1.7 million increase in equalization aid for this year. A lot of it is because of the money that the state put into it, but a lot of it is because of some things that we did. We did a refinancing and we paid off a lot of debt this past year. So we received some more aid on that as well. Oops.
Not working?
Okay, the revenue limit was estimated to grow by about $149,000. These estimates are from way last December, January. We start working on the budget for this next coming year. So we'll get done with this cycle, and in about a month, we'll start all over again for the following year. The growth is not nearly enough to cover the basic increases in salaries or benefits for staff. The administration and board use a process called budget reprioritization to be able to keep expenditures within the revenue limit. We look at student enrollments to see if current staff levels still make sense. We always look at positions when staff leave us through resignations or retirements and try to analyze whether or not we can keep doing what we're doing. We're a low spending district, so some of those analyses are really important for us to be proactive in situations where we can. This past year, or I'm sorry, for this year, we've eliminated 2 elementary teaching positions due to lower enrollments. We eliminated the full-time dispatcher position at the bus garage due to the retirement of the supervisor, and we did some reallocating of duties. We reduced the building budgets and the capital maintenance budget, which we were able to do particularly for the capital maintenance budget because of the new referendums that we had for facilities. We added secretarial time to a part-time position, and we added an aide to assist with keyboarding at Red Creek Elementary. After all of these reprioritizations happened, we actually had some funds left that we were able to apply to bus driver wages. I'm sure you've heard about the shortage all over the nation. We are no different. We are hanging in there and have enough staff, but I would put a plug in if anybody's interested in driving a school bus. See me afterwards and we can talk about that. We train for free and offer a sign-on bonus as well. But we were happy to do that because we wanted to be competitive, and those are tough positions when you drive a few hours in the morning and a few hours in the afternoon. So we certainly wanted to be more competitive with our neighbors and provide a wage that people would be willing to come work for. So just a few Fund 10 general operations budget highlights. The budget is balanced, the revenue equals the expenditures. The revenue is increasing by just over $1 million over last year, or 4.6%. This is largely due to about $1.2 million in federal funds that we received for ESSER 2. The revenue limit exemption for the declining enrollment was $293,000. So when I mentioned before that the declining enrollment exemption truly helped us out the revenue limit, without that, we would have been having to cut another almost $300,000. Local sources, which are property taxes, interest, admissions to sporting events and that nature, decreased by over $1.4 million, but that's largely due to the decrease in the Fund 10 property tax levy, and that is because of the large increase in the state equalization aid. So therefore, state sources are expected to increase due to that increase in the state aid as well. So local sources, revenue down, state sources, revenue up. And this little graphic is in your booklet too, but this is just to show the actual budget from 1920 is the blue, the red is the unaudited, we call it, for 2021 because the auditors haven't issued their final report yet for last year, and then the budget for 21-22. The green, as you can see, is increasing a lot over last year for the state sources, but in the local sources, the farthest to the left, it's decreasing. So it's just showing that inverse relationship of aid and property taxes. About 77% of our total revenue for the district, or about $17,800,000, is what is comprised of the revenue limit. And again, that's the state equalization aid, some other aids, plus property taxes. This percentage is lower than most years. Usually that's a greater percentage of our total revenue budget. But again, that's to the ESSER 2 funds that we received from the federal sources. And then here's a quick graph too of our 3-year expense comparison. Again, the blue is the 100,000 functions. What that is, that's instruction, and that is our teachers, our aides, the supplies for instruction, anything of that nature. The red is support services. That would be transportation, utilities, LMC people, pupil services people. And then the green is what we call non-program transactions. And for the most part of that is transfer to Fund 27, and the other piece is our open enrollment out. That is where we record that as well. One thing I wanted to note about the green, it's hard to tell maybe from your seats, but it is increasing each year. And the green's increasing both because of open enrollment out and because of the amount that we have to transfer to Fund 27 for special education. Our special education costs keep going up, yet the aid doesn't keep pace with that we get from the state. And so the local sources, or our Fund 10 dollars, have to contribute more to that Fund 27 amount. I also wanted to share a little bit about ESSER funds. We received ESSER 1 funds last year, and we did spend them out last year. They totaled $313,840. We used some of the funds for some floating sub-teachers. We also added 3 teachers at the middle school to reduce class sizes there. And we used some limited term custodians at each of the schools. We had 2 full-time custodians. We split them between the 2 elementaries and the high school and middle school. And they were helping, of course, during COVID with all the cleaning and sanitation and perhaps the extra garbage that we might have had as well. So that was a bulk of it, about $223,000, and then the rest of it we used for cameras and microphones, hotspots. We bought Chromebooks for K1 because we didn't have a one-to-one device for our students in kindergarten and first grade. And then we also bought masks, isolation gowns, face shields, and that nature. And that totaled another $90,000 to get to the $313,000. Our ESSER 2 funds we received last year, but have spent both in the 2021 and the 2021-22 school year. We might even be able to stretch it out to 22-23, but likely it'll be spent mostly this year. Again, we're using that for some floating sub-teachers to help when staff were out with COVID or quarantine because of it. Middle school long-term sub-teachers we kept at the middle school as well. We also hired instructional coaches to help with our teachers in training with them. We also hired interventionists, and those are working with small groups of students, either small groups or one-to-one. Again, trying to help with some more intensive interventions. And then there's resources, some virtual programs that we had to purchase, other curriculum that goes along with that, and staff development. And the staff up on top totaled just over $1 million, and the other objects totaled about $172,000. We will receive ESSER 3 funds as well. We are just in the throes of putting our plan out there for some public comment. We'll receive about $2.7 million in ESSER 3 funds. And again, the primary uses are continuing those interventionists and interventions for students, the instructional coaches, and the staff development. But there'll be more to come on that. You'll hear more about that later. Quickly on Fund 20, just that's the major fund for special projects, we call it. That's where all our student activity groups funds are housed for the clubs, and any gifts that the district received are coded there. We have a budget of about $283,000 there. Fund 27, special education that I just mentioned, $4.4 million there. That does include the federal grants that we received for IDEA. And Title VI, our federal Indian education formula grant, is also there at $85,000. Fund 30 is our debt service fund, and that's where our debt payments come from and where the tax levy for debt service is receipted to as well. The debt service tax rate is $3.40 per thousand of equalized value. That's included in the $7.94 total tax rate that I'm going to show you in a little bit. What's interesting to note that our total tax rate for the 2014 referendum was estimated to be more than $9.90. And the rate now that we're talking about is just about $2 less than that, even though we've added $46 million worth of facility improvements. An escrow payment of $1.2 million will be made from this year from the levied funds to pay off future referendum obligations sooner. We can save interest expense by doing this, and we gain equalization aid from these payments as well. And it helps mitigate those large fluctuations in the tax rate or tax levy due to the uncertainty of the next state biennium budget. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen in a couple of years. I don't even know for sure what's going to happen next year, right? So if we can try to control and mitigate that tax levy from dipping and going higher and having that roller coaster effect, that's something that the board has chosen to do in the past. Fund 39 is outside of the revenue limit, so that makes a defeasance possible. That's the extra levying amount that I'm talking about over the scheduled payments. We can pay off debt more quickly and save those interest costs. I wanted to highlight here that in 2021, the board refinanced $7.8 million in debt from prior year referendum bond issues. Additionally, because they've been doing a defeasance over the past 5 years, we were able to pay out $4 million of debt. So they had been levying over the past 5 years a little bit extra, and we were able to put that into an escrow account and then use it to pay off some of this debt during the refinancing. This alone saved taxpayers over $2 million in interest expense between the refinancing and the paying off the debt early. And I just wanted to note that not all districts do this kind of thing. So I'm really pleased that the board is willing to entertain such options when they're debating budgets and things like that. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of education, and it's a lot of planning to do, but it's obviously well worth it in the end when we can save $2 million on interest costs. Fund 40 is our capital improvements fund, and part of that fund is a Fund 46, and that is for a trust for capital improvements. So this strategy became available to school districts in 2014. And I looked it up today, and according to the DPI website, Black River Falls was one of the early adopters and began using Fund 46 immediately. A lot of school districts didn't jump on it right away and maybe have done it later. What it is, it's a way to put away funds for capital maintenance projects in the future. You had to have funds in the trust for 5 years before you could start using them. But the moment that you deposit them into the trust, you receive state aid on them. So it's a win-win. They're not just sitting in your fund balance and not really gaining any interest in the bank. You're able to deposit them into another account, maybe gain more interest, and get state aid on them when you do that. Plus, you're able to use those funds at a future date for larger projects like roofs or asphalt that we're not able to fit into our regular budget each year. So it's kind of been a win-win. We currently have about $500,000 in the Fund 46 trust. We plan to use part of it, and we have, for the bus garage remodel out on County A. And we're also going to be using it for some recommissioning of our boilers at the high school. Fund 49 is also part of Fund 40, and it's where our bond proceeds are deposited and where the expenditures come out of for the referendum. So you'll see that on that budget publication notice in your booklet, and you'll see a large amount in 2021. That is when we got the proceeds for most of the bonds for the debt that we issued for the referendum. And then this year we're starting to spend more of that, so we're going to have greater expenses this year. So you can kind of see how that trailed 1 year. We have about $3.5 million left to issue in debt. That should happen either in December or early next year, but that would be the final amount of this last $23 million referendum. Some quick highlights on Fund 50, which is our nutrition services budget. Last year, we had served 183,000 plus free breakfasts and over 208,000 free lunches. Free breakfasts and lunches continue this year, as do some snacks. And I don't know if everybody knows, but we also cater banquets. We provide food for other meetings and such throughout the district. The food service staff does a great job at trying to make special days special. Like for homecoming, they had a tailgate party and tried to mix it up a little bit. So just wanted to share some of that information with you. And then Fund 80 is our community service budget. Fund 80, it has little, isn't a great big budget. It's not a big fund, but we do have a little bit of a levy in there. So just over $11,000 is for the activities director's salary and benefits. We're able to code that to Fund 80 because he does a lot of scheduling with community groups for gyms and also with the non-district youth athletic competitions. It also includes a $10,000 levy for a parent education component. So what does this really mean? I mean, that's $21,000 or about $20,000. It's only 0.019 per thousand, so less than 2 cents per thousand of equalized property value. So for a $100,000 home, that's $1.90. So like I've said, it's a real small levy, but it is also included in that total tax levy. One of the other requirements of having a post-employment benefit trust is to talk about it at this meeting. So this is also in your packet as well, towards the back. We have a post-employment benefit trust because it's a way to fund future obligations due to retirees after they retire. The district has had a trust for this purpose for many years as a way to fund future obligations proactively and not let the liability continue to grow. Not only does the district enjoy the interest earnings on the funds in the trust, it also receives categorical aid from the state on some of the deposits to the trust. Disbursements from the trust are only made to pay current retiree obligations and can be used for no other reason. Mid-America is the company that we work with, and they manage the investments for the trust. So we talked a lot about the increases in aid and the levy going down in Fund 10 and a defeasance in Fund 39. What's that all mean? So this information is also in your booklet, but as you can see, the board approved a levy in June 21, like I had mentioned, for $8 million, $8,042,711. We then got our numbers on Friday, October 15th for the equalization aid, which meant that our Fund 10 portion of the levy was going to drop. And instead of allowing that drop, we're asking that we would put a defeasance in place in Fund 39 and continue that same total levy amount from June of $8,042,711. Again, using that strategy to pay off debt more quickly, save interest costs, and pay off the debt sooner, and, sorry, I lost my thought, and also free up some opportunities in the future should we need any changes in that levy. What I'm concerned about is that our aid for next year may not be as much as it is this year. So then what happens to the levy? It goes up. So if we can manage that levy and keep that levy at that $8 million, $42,000 mark, we maybe be able to better manage that levy for the following year. I just wanted to note too that that $8,042,000 is $642,000 less than last year's levy. So the levy is still scheduled to decrease in total. The levy rate is also scheduled to decrease from $8.98 to $7.94. So here's a pretty involved chart, but this is also in your booklet. The blue lines are the levy for each year for the last 11 years. So as you can see, the bars did go up after the first 3 years of this chart, but that's when the referendum from 2014 came into play. We had estimated that that levy rate was going to be $9.90, but it actually turned out to be $9.79. The orange line on the chart is the school district's tax rate for each of those years. The red line is the state K-12 average tax rate. So you can see the school district of Black River Falls has typically been below the state average for as many years as I can think of, but for sure during this period. So when the tax rate went up to $9.79, the next year it dropped slightly to $9.45. The board made the conscious decision at that point to do a defeasance and to keep that tax rate the same for the next 2 years. Then, in the following year, it dropped to $8.98. We let the rate drop at that point, and the levy, and then for the next 2 years, we kept the tax rate at $8.98 again. Again, trying to manage that tax levy and mill rate at the same time. This year, the last bar to the right is what we're proposing to do for 21-22, letting the levy drop by almost $700,000, and the mill rate dropped also to $7.94. And again, I just wanted to remind everybody that, as you can see, that's almost $2 less than it was in 2014-15 when we added debt on for a referendum. This chart is just a comparison of the regional districts in our area. Black River Falls is in the orange. This chart's also in your booklet, but just showing that we're pretty much in the middle. Actually, there's only 3 districts that are lower than us on this chart, so we're 4th from the lowest tax rate at $8.98. Toma's at $7.15. Melrose Medoro's at $12.15. So that's quite a bit of difference from Black River Falls $8.98 to Mount Min, that's at $12.15. Here are those revisions that I've talked about for the levy and aid. Those are also in your booklet. The result of that change in the revenue limit of $73,000 in the end, we'd also like to balance out our expenditures to that revenue increase of $73,000. So we would add that to the open enrollment out, as we know that we have more open enrollment out numbers this year, and we'll probably need a little bit more in the budget for that. So that would again balance the revenue and expenditures, and then adding that $1.2 million onto the debt service property tax levy. So the budget publication notice is in your packet as well. That's just what this is, and this reflects all of those numbers that I just shared tonight, and includes them for the board tonight for the meeting, after this meeting, when they would set those final budget revisions and approve that. And we would publish those Fund 10, Fund 30, and Fund 40 amounts again. We wouldn't republish all the other funds because nothing is changing in those funds. I know that's a lot of numbers, a lot. I don't know if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask.
With the defeasance, what assets is the district offering up?
With the defeasance, what assets are the district offering up? We don't have to offer up any assets. It is part of the tax levy. We are able to levy it, and then pay off debt.
Then the debt is just rewritten?
No, the debt's not rewritten. We pay off the longer issued debt, which has the higher interest rates, and so then we wouldn't have those payments when we get to that point in our schedule.
So that's what I'm confused on. If you're paying it off and taking out more money, what are you using as the collateral?
I'm not sure I understand the question. It's just, we would be levying for the debt, we collect it, right? And then we would make payments on the debt that we have out there in a schedule. We don't have to have collateral per se in the school district. It's not like a home loan that you have to show more appraised value or something to be able to take that money out. Are there any other questions? Okay.
I just had a motion to make regarding the budget modification. I'm not sure if this is the correct place to do it in the agenda, or if it would wait until after Dr. Peterson's comments.
For the tax levy?
It would be for the tax levy, yeah, I guess, but it would be a budget modification regarding the budgetary process and where our funds are being allocated.
So the purpose tonight is for the budget presentation and then the budget hearing. There isn't a motion on the budget at this meeting. There is, later there'll be a resolution on the levy. The budget is adopted then later by the school board. And I believe we have that as an agenda item at the meeting that follows this meeting.
So there's not an opportunity to speak to how the budget is being allocated?
There is a opportunity for you to comment and to give your feedback, but not a formal motion to amend the budget.
And when would that be?
That'll be right after we get through all the questions.
Will you tell me so I don't miss it?
Yes, I will.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for your time.
We already have some questions, but we do need to go through the procedure. At this time, I will open the hearing regarding the school district's budget. This is an opportunity to provide comments regarding the proposed budget. This is the first call for those wishing to comment. Please identify yourself and your residence if you wish to comment.
So this is where you would get to give your input on the budget.
First of all, I'd like to thank the administration and particularly Jill Collins for all of the time and effort it must take to create a budget that meets both the needs of the school and the staff, and which also has kept our tax levy stable now for a number of years. Even with the major improvements made to district facilities, and this is exceptional work, and I thank all of you. Educational resources for the past 8 years have been heavily focused on closing achievement gaps. Thus, the district has used most increases in available funding almost exclusively to provide increased programming and supports for students who are at risk or below grade level. Some of the details of the current proposed budget include the following. I had the opportunity today to look at the detailed budget in the which is 72 pages long, in the school office, and any of the electors can go in and appreciate that detailed budget. So it was interesting to me where our money goes. In the athletic program for the middle school and the high school, we spend a total of $313,090. For behavioral management programming, it was $433,875. Emotionally disturbed, $148,900. Cognitively disabled, $311,283. For learning disabled, $129,125. Our total special educational fund, as you could see, was $4,475,925. I looked at the gifted and talented program. It was $4,765. Educational enrichment was $12,000. State Statute 118.35 demands that each school board ensure that all gifted and talented students have access to a program for gifted and talented students. As this Black River Falls School District has a motto to inspire, I would like to make the following motion, and as if I'm not able to make an motion to the electorate, it would be a suggestion. I would move that the 2021-2022 budget would include funding to support one full-time employee dedicated to development and maintaining programming for enrichment opportunities to meet the needs of gifted and talented students, as well as accelerated learners. This would be in addition to the proposed $16,000 total already in the budget for program expenditures. That cost of that in salaries, when I looked on the state websites, would be about $45,000, somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 for a gifted and talented program coordinator. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. I'm Patty Jacobson. I reside at W8599 Oak Ridge Road in Black River Falls, Wisconsin. I am a graduate of Black River High School.
Thank you, Patty. This is the second call for those wishing to comment. Seeing no other speakers, I will close the hearing. Next.
Excuse me.
You can't hear me? Okay. This is the second call for those wishing to comment. This is the second call for those wishing to comment.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
Good evening, my name is Lynn Settlebauer, and I reside at W12055 Town Creek Road, Black River Falls. And I'd like to make a motion to the electorate or to listen to what I have to say anyways, and to accept the following budget modification. The Wisconsin Association of School Boards is a member of the National Association of School Boards, an organization that has called for the unconstitutional involvement of the FBI and the Federal Department of Justice in attempts to locally silence parental voices in the education of their own children. The Wisconsin Association of School Board ignores their stated mission to protect local control of schools by supporting the interest of the State Department of Instruction over the express wishes of local school boards. This is evident in their vigorous defense of equity in education. The Wisconsin Association of School Boards refers to students as our children, rather than affirming that children belong to their parents and that parents have an invaluable and legal role in the lives of their children. I move that any taxpayer-funded funds, state or local, dedicated to the support of WASB be removed from the 21-22 budget. This would include membership dues and conference and workshop activities. Arguments in favor. NASB wrote a letter to the Department of Justice calling for protection from parents whom they classified as domestic terrorists. Attorney Garland established a federal task force to investigate parents who speak out at school boards. This violates the premise of local control. Legally, with rare exception, the Department of Justice should have no role in local law enforcement issues. The role of parents and parental influence is minimized by this action of the National Association of School Boards. WASB is heavily influenced by urbanized areas with larger membership numbers, while rural values are underrepresented. WASB promotes equity and equal educational outcomes for all students rather than recognizing the individual value and nature of each student and the varied levels and types of achievements essential in a free society. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. So again, this is the second call for those wishing to comment. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Mark Mauer. I reside at N7801 West Snow Creek Road, Black River Falls. I make the motion to the electorate to accept the following budget modification. The business of the board, all discussion and public comments made at open meeting should be heard by those in attendance and those electronically participating. I make a motion that the 2021-22 budget include funds for the purchase of adequate sound system equipment to be available for all open meetings of the school board, which would accommodate the needs of those physically present and those viewing online. I would also make a second motion that the location of the board meetings will continue to take place in a school facility that will accommodate at least 50 individuals with consideration given to any social distancing requirements. Arguments in favor of the motion. Number one, complaints of those attending virtually not able to hear the speakers. Number two, audibility is transparency. Number three, space is important to allow interaction and participation as per board policy. And number four, there may be comments that the equipment is available. We need to ask for commitment that it be provided for all meetings.
Thank you, Mark. Again, second call for comments. Seeing no other speakers, I will close the hearing for the budget.
I have a point of order.
I'm sorry.
I have a point of order.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just questioning, in the Wisconsin state statutes, it says the electorate does have a chance to vote on these things. It's statute 120.10, parentheses 8 and 9. And I'm wondering how, I've watched other school boards do their annual meetings, and they do vote on these things, so I'm wondering why we are not able to vote on these things here.
So we are going to vote tonight on the levy, but that's, you'll see that's 8A.
Yeah.
So this is just a budget hearing at this point. So there will be a vote here in two items.
So then, is it necessary for us, anybody who objects or would like to see these things move forward, how do we do that? We defeat the levy?
Well, I'll let you, if you want to clarify on that. The levy is a levy, the levy is not a budget.
Correct.
Right, so the annual meeting has specifically delegated powers, one of which is the power to tax or to approve a tax levy. The annual meeting does not have a power to amend the budget. The budget hearing is to provide comment. The budget approval process is a school board function, and so certainly making your opinions known here during the hearing, and also I haven't seen the agenda for the meeting afterwards for if there's public comment during that time. The board can take up the stated concerns that have been raised here as part of the hearing at that time. But that's not, the annual meeting does not have the power to amend the budget just to approve a tax levy for the budget. Does that clarify, or?
It sort of does, I have questions.
So again, second call for those wishing to comment. All right, now I will go ahead and seeing as there are no other speakers, I will close the hearing. Next, we have item 7, comments on the annual report to the electors. We'll have our district administrator, Dr. Shelley Severson.
Again, thank you so much for coming this evening. If I could just take one moment to comment on a few of those previous items. Just last week, we received our 8 microphone system that we used at Red Creek, and we didn't receive any negative feedback, so I'm hoping we finally found a solution that provided plenty of amplification for everyone to be able to hear and participate in our meetings as they would like to. So thank you for that suggestion. We think we've got that box checked. I would also just offer that we haven't talked as a full board, so I will just tell you what I know. NASB spoke without talking to the individual states, certainly. Absolutely spoke without talking to the individual states. And there's been an awful lot of conversation at the state level for communication that they put out supposedly on behalf of everybody else without there being any local conversation. And so you're certainly not the only one that was disappointed in that communication. And so I would just share that as well. So with all of that aside, Jill got to share some financial good news for you. I'm going to focus a little bit tonight on just it's other good news, but it is a little bit focused here. So tonight I'm going to talk about the many, many, many ways that we can talk about the success of our students. When we talk about inspiring excellence, we know that that means something different to every single student, because not every student is reaching for that same dream. Not every student wishes to have that same career pathway, and not every family has that same drive to do everything exactly the same. So the idea of redefining ready is, what does it take for each student to be able to measure their success? And so redefining ready is something that started with AASA, the American Association of School Administrators, and it talks about college ready, career ready, and life ready. And so this organization has worked for many, many, many years trying to talk about what other measures can we use to note student achievement. Of course, achievement is measured in our state standardized tests, but we also know that's a test that happens on a day during the school year and perhaps doesn't tell the total picture of our students. We also know that not all students are four-year college bound, and so those tests aren't deeply meaningful to them, and so other ways to celebrate their successes along the way. And so the Redefining Ready organization has worked closely with Wisconsin State Legislature and the Wisconsin State Department of Public Instruction to try to talk about the state report cards that are issued each year and what information is communicated on there. Can we show a state report card that is more diverse and that allows for other ways of success to be noted? And so we're going to talk about this a little bit. In Black River Falls, this was introduced to the school board in 2017. It certainly is not instead of any of our other achievement measures. It is value added. It's in addition to. Again, it's a national movement, and just this year, our new state report cards, they are released, but they are embargoed, meaning only district staff members. They're not released to the community just yet. It is the first year that they have some of these Redefining Ready indicators on the back, and I'm really excited about the story that it's going to tell. When that state report card comes out, this data is 1 year lagging, so it's going to be from 1920 school year. I'm going to share with you some of those indicators from this past school year. So first, the whole big picture of Redefining Ready is that we all learn in a variety of ways, right? That idea that we don't all have the same single focus goal in front of us, and so that means there are as many pathways to get there as there are students that can imagine their next steps and their next possibilities. And so Redefining Ready is an attempt to honor that for each one of our individual learners. Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, the former state superintendent of schools, coined this: Wisconsin graduates are college and career ready, linking them both together, that college preparation and career preparation. Locally in our district, we've worked really hard with our business partnerships, and that pre-COVID, we had gained some great traction in communicating with our business partners as to what skills they were looking for in the workforce and how we could partner together to get our high school kids to have a plan for after graduation if they weren't interested in college, but also how we could meet the needs of our business partners that were looking for a workforce. And so that idea of college and career ready really resonated loudly and strongly with our local partnerships. And so this research has decided, they have articulated some indicators. And so if you are deemed to be college ready, it means that you have a GPA of at least 2.8 out of a 4-point scale and one of the following indicators. So you start with the GPA of 2.8 and then one of the following. Either you get a 3 or higher on an AP exam, or you pass an advanced placement course with an A, B, or C, or you have a dual credit college class in either math or English, or you have a college developmental English or math class, And then Algebra 2, this is kind of interesting when you think of the wide variety of math classes, but the research says that students who are successful in Algebra 2 are statistically significantly more capable and able to be successful in collegiate level math. So that Algebra 2 is kind of this gatekeeper to success in college. Then it also says we don't have the International Baccalaureate exam here, so that's not local. But these other indicators, so a 2.8 is the first gate, and then one of those other indicators. It also talks about those standardized tests because, again, this is not instead of high achievement and other exams. It's a more rounded picture of this. And so it talks about the ACT exam. You can see the scores there, 18, 22, science 23, and math 22. So these are the college-ready indicators, and then they have a whole different set for career-ready. And so these are the indicators for somebody who is career-ready. They say that you have to identify a career cluster, meaning you're not randomly going through high school taking whatever classes interest you. You've identified, I think I'm interested in this, and here's the pathway. If you've not taken a look at our new course description booklet at the high school, they've done an amazing job articulating so many different pathways that kids can take and what classes they should engage in early on to get to that goal at the end. So, interesting, when they talk about career ready, what did we hear from our employers? We want kids that show up, and look at that. The national data says, yep, we need at least 90% attendance if they're going to be career ready. It talks about community service, work-based learning experience, industry credentials, and then dual credit career pathway courses, and the 2 or more organized co-curricular activities. This is research-based from wild, huge bodies of research around the entire nation, and these are the pieces: career cluster and 2 or more of those benchmarks. And you were deemed to be career ready because you have demonstrated the skills that it takes to be a quality employee. And so this is what the Redefining Ready looks like. Here's some of the research, and I'll let you take a look at those, but that idea of attendance, you can easily see how that applies to either college ready or career ready. You have to be there, you have to show up in life. And so it also talks about the Algebra 2 there, the community service. All of those pieces are articulated. That is the research that backs some of these pieces. So what we've done in Black River Falls is we've created a Redefining Ready report card or scorecard for each one of our students. And our high school counselors sit down with each one of our students during their 9th grade meetings, their 10th grade meetings, their 11th grade, 12th grade, and they talk about, are you feeling like you're a college-bound student? Here's the criteria. Let's monitor where you are. If you are career focused, let's monitor that. But you know what? You don't even have to pick. We could monitor both at the same time and make sure that you're meeting the criteria to leave all of your possible options open moving forward. So these have been implemented the last couple of years at the high school. This is the backside of it that we send home to the families so that they can better understand what all of those things stand for, right? Because just seeing attendance, they can say, yep, that's important, but then understanding the importance of it, linking it to the research behind Redefining Ready is that next important piece. And so this is the exciting part that I get to share with you from last year's class. So the class of 2020, 25 students earned 26 different industry credentials. And what's interesting, the previous year on the state report card, 1.4 students, high school students in the state of Wisconsin earned an industry recognized credential. Our district, 25% of our graduating class earned that industry recognized credential. So what are those things? It's like we've got architecture and construction, we've got a marketing, we've got a lot of students that do Microsoft Office specialists, we've got some hospitality, some auto mechanics, so all different kinds of interests. Some of the students take them because that's their career pathway, and some of the students engage in them because they know that they want to go to college, but in that general area. And so they work towards those industry recognized credentials early on. The next piece is one that I know I talk about at board meetings otherwise, or at other times, but I just can't say it loud enough. When we talk about dual enrollment, what dual enrollment really means is that the student is sitting in Black River Falls High School, and they are being taught by a Black River Falls High School teacher who has gone through a rigorous process with the Post-Secondary Institute. And so for these dual enrollment, we're talking about Western Technical College. So they spend time at WTC during the summer, making sure that their course content is aligned and their expectations are aligned. And when that student is successful with that class in Black River Falls High School, they receive high school credit and post-secondary credit at the exact same time. And so last year we had 159 students successfully earn WTC credit. When you add up the money, and so again, we're not paying that tuition, the tuition is paid by our teachers investing that time working with that organization, it is $81,651 of tuition that those families won't have to pay when their child goes into post-secondary education. This is something that I feel so strongly about, and one of our goals is to have every student graduate from high school with some post-secondary credits already under their belt. Because think of the confidence when you walk into college if you already know that you're capable of doing collegiate level work. It's a game changer. And if you know you already have some credits, it's easier to venture in even part-time to start off because again, you've already got some credits in the bag. So that's a really, really, really big deal. The dual enrollment piece, I will tell you that our CTE teachers, so that is business, agriculture, family consumer sciences, tech ed, business, do I have all of them? I think that's all of them. They are absolutely committed to offering these opportunities. And so we offer more dual credit courses than many, many schools that are double our size. The percentage in the 1920 state average was a 17.8. For us, in this past year, 2021, 30% of our student population earned some dual credits while they were sitting in our high school. I think that's absolutely amazing and great work on the part of our staff and our students for engaging in that work. The next piece that I want to talk about is AP courses. You saw that in that College Ready, it talked about successfully passing an AP course. They count that as an A, B, or C, not taking the exam and successfully passing that, but passing the course. So the state average is 19.2% of students from 1920. The state average was 19.2% that successfully completed an AP class. Black River Falls last year was a 19.7% of our high school students successfully completed an AP class. That's one of the primary indicators to college success when they move forward. The other piece is the 43 students participated in work-based learning. That program has absolutely just grown by leaps and bounds over previous years. We have invested, absolutely, to Patty's point, we absolutely have invested in our achievement gaps and bringing up our bottom. We certainly have expended a lot of time, effort, and energy and money on providing opportunities for our kids to get out into the workforce, so that upon graduation, they have a plan. Whether it's college or whether it's career, we want them to have that plan. The state average for 1920 was 2.4% of students graduated with a work-based learning experience. Black River Falls last year, 8% of our students graduated with a work-based learning opportunity. We are really committed to this, redefining what means ready. Not all of our students are college bound, and that's okay. How many trades are paying amazing rates and are really struggling for a workforce? That's part of our responsibility as well. So redefining ready means all of our students ready for whatever their future goals are. And I am really proud of the work that our staff has done to make sure that our kids are getting there. So I felt like this was also excellent news on top of the financial good news that Jill Collins shared. I also wanted to talk a little bit about this because this is some real concrete examples of the business partnerships we've made. We now have an Auto Tech Academy that Gross Motors has just been amazing. They have a teacher or somebody who works for them that went through the certification process to be able to mentor our students. It's right up at Gross Motors. Some of our students are getting hired while they're still high school students and then mentored into a full-time career after that. We also have a program with Black River Memorial Hospital Western Technical College that our students are taking the CNA course. So we've got groups, sometimes it's offered here, sometimes they drive to Toma. It depends where the number of people are to take the course. But our high school students are graduating again with their high school diploma and their CNA certification. We've got an increasing number of students going to school for nursing, and they graduate with their diploma, with their CNA, and they work as a CNA while they're going to nursing school, getting them ready for whatever their goals are. Finally, the EMT, there are some age requirements on there, but it also is held right down here at the Western Technical College, and we've got some high school students that are earning their EMT, and talk about community service, right? We need more great people willing to provide that service to our community, and so we're really proud to continue to partner in all these ways to encourage students to take the first steps toward their future moving forward. That was a lot of information to get in a short amount of time, but tonight the highlight is the budget hearing, but I just really couldn't pass up the opportunity, now that the state is reporting those pieces, to show what exemplary work our staff and our students are doing to make sure they're prepared for their college, career, and life ready. What questions do you have for me? I see Barb.
Yes. Is there somewhere we can get what you just presented?
Sure, I can give you the presentation. Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah,
Or?
right, because there was a lot of information, and I thought it was good information, but I have my camera on, but I didn't catch it until the end of the slide.
Happy to share.
Yeah, I don't know if you should, if I have to go, do you have it on your website? Or?
Nope, it was just created, put together the last couple days for tonight. I mean, all those individual pieces of data exist in other places, but the presentation was just put together. If this is what you're seeking, I can certainly share. Yeah? Other questions? Yes?
I have a question.
And I'm having a hard time seeing from here. You might need to identify yourself from...
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's Amanda? Now I can see.
What's the proper procedure?
Well, you need to identify yourself for the minutes. I'm just having a hard time seeing. I apologize.
My name is Amanda Sharp. I live at W1118 Hayden Lane, Black River Falls. I'm curious, there was a lot of information presented about how we have kids that are ready to go to college from our perspective. What kind of follow-up is ever done? Are our students ever surveyed to go, how did you feel once you got to college? Because just because you were ready, maybe when you jumped into the deep end of the pool, was it really what you were prepared for? What feedback do you get from past students on how they felt about their first couple of years of college? How many of them are actually going on to achieve that success we plan to have them prepared for?
So 2 answers. First, we do an alumni survey, but it is invitational. So we absolutely have zero ability to, whether they follow us on social media and choose to engage. We don't have mailing addresses, all that stuff. So we do invite for an alumni survey. And second, the state of Wisconsin, for a time, was reporting back to districts what percentage of your students were that started college, continued college. But honestly, I haven't seen that data. It comes from not DPI, but it was something in the UW system. I actually recently reached out asking if they're going to continue that practice, but it's been 4 years since I got the last data, and it was a 1-year blip. I really am unsure where it came from then, but we don't have any means to hold these kids captive to share that data with us, if that makes any sense. So the ones that attended in Wisconsin, at one point the UW system was putting it together. I'm unaware if they are still doing that. And
it's safe and fair to say it would be very difficult, but would you be surprised if there were students who got out to college and expressed that they didn't feel well prepared?
Man, I'm not sure that's, of course we wouldn't be surprised. That happens all over the place, right? Of course it does. This is the national research that says this is what a student has to indicate, reach these accomplishments to be college and career ready. So of course we wouldn't be surprised. This is the average. Of course there's going to be outliers on both sides. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, with that, we may start our resolutions.
All right, tonight we have 5 resolutions before the electorate. So these start on, if you're following along your packet, the first one is on page 5. Be it resolved that the school board levy a tax of $8,042,711 to operate the schools of the district for the 21-22 fiscal school year. That's $5,816,770 for operation, $2,206,731 for debt service, $19,210 for community service, for our $8 million total. So at this time, the chair will entertain a motion. Identify yourself for the minutes, please. I'm sorry. Say that again.
Paul Owen.
And
519 Hill Road, Upper Fall.
Marty, did you get that? Okay. We'll take a second.
I'll second. Pat Carlson, on 21 Scott Street, Black River Falls.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Second resolution, and this is on page 6, and the rest of these are on page 6. Be it resolved that the school board members be authorized to receive payment of actual and necessary expenses while traveling in the performance of their duties. Will entertain a motion.
Linda Heller, 1374 Van Buren.
And a second.
Joy Longan, 114 North 11th, Black River Falls.
You good? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right. Resolution passes. Be it resolved that the school board members' salaries be established at $85 for regular meeting, $50 for expulsion hearing, $30 for special meetings, $20 for committee meetings, $50 per half day of conference attendance, $100 for full day of conference attendance, and the president and clerk each receive an additional $100. Now, point of clarification, this is not an increase. This has been the same for several years, and that additional $100 is annual addition for the clerk and president. So at this time, again, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Pat Carlson.
And second.
I'll second it. Megan Alzell, 216 Second Street.
Kind of discussion?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, when I looked through the detailed budget, that our school board really works for hardly anything. I think the total amount was $15,000 a year, and well worth it. So just wanted to make that comment.
Just
Patty Jacobson.
Just to be clear, Patty, 15,000?
For the whole, for the board. That was the expense to the district for the board. For
Oh,
the whole
okay.
year. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't think my annual salary here
No, I know.
totals 15,000.
I just thought it was a pretty good deal, so I thought I'd bring it up.
You figured out how to file paperwork differently than I am, I think. All right, thank you, Patty. So, the chair will entertain a motion.
You did that.
We did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, we did that. Got ahead of myself. So now, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Resolution passes. Be it resolved that the school board is directed to provide for the prosecution or defense of any action or proceedings in which the school district is interested. So this is covered by section 120.10 subsection 14 of Wisconsin statutes. Again, looking for a motion.
Amy Huffman, 20 South Fifth Street.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. And a final one for the evening. Be it resolved that the school board is directed to furnish school lunches to the pupils of the school district and the appropriate funds for that purpose.
Tom Cooper, I move approval.
Thank you, Tom. And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 9 is other business. The district has not received any petitions for agenda items meeting the statutory requirements for this evening. Wisconsin statute 120.09 requires a petition signed by 100 electors filed 60 days prior to the annual meeting. At this time, we will consider recommendations to the school board for future agenda items for the 2020 annual meeting. While we cannot take action on these items this evening, the board will consider and potentially take action at a future school board meeting. The board adding a resolution to the agenda would prevent the electorate from needing to follow the petition process described earlier. Also, in addition to this, if you don't wish to speak about it tonight, or if you have other items in the meantime, you may reach out to any of your school board members for recommendations for future annual meetings. So at this time, we'll take any suggestions for future agenda items.
Patty Jacobson, 08599 Oak Ridge Road, Black River Falls. I would really like to see, as a part of the electorate, some form of accountability for what is being used for school materials and textbooks, particularly in the high school, regarding the websites I don't think there's anywhere listed, or is there any policy that says any reporting requirements at all to know what websites our students are being referred to and what websites are being used for resources. And I think that's important information the school board should know, and it should be available to the public.
Thank you, Patty. Any further suggestions? Right, then at this time, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Also moved, Patty Jacobson.
And second?
Second, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. At this time, we're going to take about a 10-minute